Dating back to the year 2000, the Orange 5 is probably one of the most important bikes they've ever sold. Over the years, the bike has morphed and changed to the ever-adapting consumer demand and the way we use trail centres. Despite these changes, Orange have tried their hardest to retain the maximum fun, minimum maintenance mantra with this bike. Orange is keen to point out, and they claim that the bike has a really wide range of applications, from your average trail centre hero right the way through to your beginner enduro or downhill racer. You can easily change the way the bike rides depending on the type of kit you've got bolted to it. For example, if you want to ride downhill, you throw on a 36, but if you're looking to do more trail riding, you put on a Fox 34. Like their recently released Alpine 6, the new 5 isn't a massive departure from the old bike. It retains the same silhouette, has similar geometry, and a similar amount of travel. And it's got the single pivot suspension design that Orange are famous for. The 5 has also undergone some sizing changes. They've removed the XS but have added an XXL at the top end. Small people, don't worry though, you can still fit on a 5. The S size is actually smaller than the current small size and is probably more akin to the XS. They've also added a metric shock mounting system that uses a 210mm eye-to-eye shock with 145mm of rear wheel travel. That's up 5mm from the outgoing model. They've also widened the pivot by 10mm, that's 5mm on each side, and this is to help increase stiffness, at least Orange claim it does. The geometry's also been updated to a longer, lower and slacker theme. There's a 65-degree head angle, a 74-degree seat tube angle, and a 329mm high bottom bracket. This means the BB drop has changed by 5mm to minus 25mm from beneath the bike's axles. Orange has increased the chainstay length to 426mm across all the sizes and has roughly increased the reach by 10mm on all the sizes as well, up to a lofty 502mm for the double XL size. For the suspension geeks out there, let's talk about the anti-squat and leverage ratios. Orange have tried really hard to reduce the bike's anti-squat and really keep the leverage ratio as flat as possible. At roughly 30% sag, in a 34-tooth chainring and a 50-tooth rear cassette cog, the bike has 128% anti-squat. Now this means that the pedalling forces will help the bike's suspension resist compression. By adjusting the shock angle and the location of the main pivot, Orange has tuned the rear suspension to be incredibly flat or linear, with a slight ramp up at the end of the bike's stroke. In theory, at least, the reduced anti-squat level and the more linear suspension should help the bike absorb bumps well when you're pedaling, both sat down and standing up. It also means that the bike's going to be easy to tune with the right shock. So, with all of the theory out the way, let's get on to how the new Orange 5 factory rides. I rode the factory model, which is one down from the top XTR spec model and has a mix of Fox and SRAM components. As I mentioned earlier, Orange do spec the bike with different forks. Some models have a Fox 34, some a Pike with 35mm stanchions, and the one I rode has a Fox 36. This means I rode the burliest 5 model available that's well suited to riding enduro and light downhill. Out on the trail, the first thing I noticed was the bike's reduced anti-squat when climbing. With the spec'd Fox DPX2 shock not locked out, I did notice that the bike bobbed with higher cadence pedal strokes on flatter fire road sections. But with that extra compliance, there was improved comfort and at times more grip. Although when I was riding on flatter sections of trail, I did find that I needed that lockout function. But when the climbs got a little more single tracky, a little bit more technical and rougher, I instantly took off the lockout function and I was willing to sacrifice a bit of that pedaling efficiency for more grip and comfort. On to the most fun part, the descending. Now I found the bike, when going downhill, really came alive. Generally speaking, no matter what type of terrain you're riding, the Orange 5 is a really fun, playful and poppy bike. The 65-degree head angle felt slack enough for a 145mm travel bike, and I found it was easy to forget that it wasn't a full-on DH rig when descending. Now that's a real compliment to say that a bike with such a small amount of travel inspired that much confidence. However, despite that confidence-inspiring feeling that was frequently there, it isn't the most forgiving of bikes when you're descending. The bike's suspension design means that it's not going to be able to absorb every single bump you hit, especially if you're doing it in a cumbersome way. For example, if you stray offline in a rock garden or want to plow through some roots with your legs straight, the bike isn't going to help you get through these. This is most likely because of the single pivot suspension design, and it is possible to choke the bike's shocks when you're hitting this type of obstacle. But concentrate, attack and focus, and you will get the most from this bike. It'll give you back as much as you put in. This is a thing that we find with Orange's single pivot bikes. They all have this kind of overwhelming characteristic of giving back what you put in. With the 5, Orange has managed to create an exceptionally capable but highly fun bike that will do a lot more than just your average trail centre loop, depending on the type of kit you've got spec'd on it. Remember though, the 5 does have a typically orange ride. It gives back as much as you put in, but isn't especially forgiving if you get it wrong. What do you guys think of Orange's new 5? Is it a one bike quiver killer, or does the single pivot suspension design turn you off? As always, if you've got any questions for me, leave them in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.